Hello, and welcome back to the Live Reality Game Podcast. My name is Steven Stewart, and I'm thrilled today to be here for more Surviving Reelfoot First Fire coverage. And no better to talk about Reelfoot than with our sixth place player, Brandon. Brandon, how are you doing?
I'm great. Nice to see you this morning.
How has your past couple weeks been since the game been treating you?
Oh my gosh, it's been a whirlwind. I think most of the cast knows, like my kids, I have twins, they turned 9. The Monday I came back. So I was driving back Sunday from Tennessee. I was driving back to Atlanta, and we had my twins' birthday party with like 40 kids. So I got thrown into the mix with like a bunch of kids, all their parents, all like our friends and stuff. And I'm like, hello, everyone. It was a really crazy, welcome back to real life. And then I had to travel the following weekend for a wedding, and we finished up the kids. So it's been busy. It's been very, very busy. We're heading vacation this weekend. So, I'll say I've kind of processed it a little bit, but I haven't had a ton of downtime. So I've been watching some of these other deep dives, and it's kind of helped give me a little bit of perspective. Being in the jury helped give me a little bit of perspective too about what was happening that I didn't quite understand. So it's been good. I think I'm still gonna be noodling a little bit for the rest of the summer, but I'm feeling good. I'm feeling really great about my experience too, for sure.
So, Bradley, then, what has been your takeaway from the game and your experience?
Oh man, that's good. That's a good question. I have kind of always wanted to be on the real show Survivor. And for me, coming to Reelfoot was more than anything just a chance to see if I could do it, if I could push myself, if I was as good at some of this stuff as I thought I might be, if I was, and there were some moments where I was like, oh wow, I'm really not cut out for this. Like night 1 was one of those moments. Morning of day 2, those were moments where I was like, oh, what have I done? What am I doing here? I miss my kids. I miss my husband. I haven't slept. I'm starving. This is terrible. But I pushed through that, and felt like I was really kind of catching my stride toward the end. Obviously the game didn't go the way I wanted it to go. And I'd say kind of strategically, I never really caught my stride, but I feel really great about my experience overall. I kind of, there's some stuff I wish I'd done differently or had gone differently, but in general, knowing what I know about our season, I'm really proud of myself. I pushed through some really rough times for me out there. And the feedback I've seen from my friends, from my family, from production has said, it was really a pleasure to watch out there. You were a great character for us. So for all that stuff, I'm really proud. I'm happy for that experience.
So do you still want to be on the TV show?
Yeah, I think so. If you'd asked me the day after, I'd have been like, not sure.
3 weeks behind, you're like, yeah, I can do it all again. Why not?
Now that I've forgotten it, I'm like, yeah, I'm still interested to do it. I think that's the ultimate test. I still feel a little hungry, I didn't quite get to do everything I wanted to do, get to show everything I wanted to show on Reelfoot. So yeah, I still am interested.
So have you always been a Survivor fan, or when did you fall into the fandom?
Day 1, I remember watching the very first episode. I was up with my grandmother at her house in Ohio, and I remember laying on the floor. I was in college. I'm older, and so I was I think graduating from college that year, and was laying on the floor, and we watched this thing, and I was like, that is awesome. And I was just about to graduate, and I was just thinking about what I was going to do with my life, and I'm like, I want to go on an adventure like this. I want to do something fun like this. So I've been a huge fan kind of from the beginning. I moved overseas for a decade, and so kind of had my adventure, but I also was always looking for little connections to home. And so being able to watch Survivor overseas, which was challenging, but I figured it out. It's kind of just a way to have a little bit of home with you, seeing stuff that you're familiar with. It just kind of made it feel like you weren't so far away sometimes. And plus it was just, I kind of as I grew up and as I kind of got further and further into the business world, I was like, oh, this social strategy is cool too. I'm into that. Right? So I evolved with this game, with the show, with the game, And now I like watch it with my kids, and we do a little pool of who's going to win at the beginning. So, all that kind of fun stuff. So it's, I've like lived with Survivor for so long. I'm just a huge fan.
So how did you then learn about Reelfoot and
Yeah.
allergies in general?
Yeah. So when I was overseas, I also started listening to podcasts and kind of quickly found like the community, like Rob has a podcast and that kind of stuff, and was listening to that for years and years and years. And I think I'd heard every now and then that, there are these things, they're online games, and there are other things you can do. But I was busy. I was overseas. I had little kids, and I was like, I can't commit to doing any of that kind of stuff, really.
That's how I feel about orgs in general.
Yeah, it's a lot. But so I knew they were around, but hadn't really like looked that much into them. I was just kind of content with listening to podcasts and stuff. And last year, kind of the end of what is this, 2025? So the end of 2023, I ended up leaving my job. I wanted to kind of stay home with the kids, be a little more focused on them. They were younger. It was kind of a good time professionally, personally, for me to kind of just be home. During the day when they were at school and stuff, it kind of gave me a little bit of time. So I said, oh, well, there are these, I've heard about these orgs. And one of them, Vanquish, kind of popped up on one of the chat groups I'm in and said, hey, come play a game. I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Maybe I'll try that. And I did. That was my very first game, season 10 of Vanquish, and had a blast. And I actually ended up 6th place in that one. But it was a very different 6th place. I think I was taken out just because if I made it any further, I was people suspected I would win. So I felt really great about that first game I played. I was like, this is awesome. I'm made for this, And one of the people who helped to run that organization was Melissa Miller, who was in last summer's season of Reelfoot. And I was, of course, kind of following her, and I saw her do Reelfoot in the summer. I said, "Oh wow, that's really cool. That's a live game." And I was kind of reading them. I said, "Oh, and I asked her, and she said, "Oh, you should apply. It's very fun. You love it. It's who knows if you get in. It's very competitive, but go for it." I said, "Okay, sure, why not?" And so I applied. I had played one other game in the summer that I actually won.
Online or live?
Online.
Okay.
So only online. I'd only done online stuff up till Reelfoot. And still, I've only done just Reelfoot. So once I applied, it was kind of like met the guys and kind of had pretty good conversations. I didn't know until December that I was in, I think, or maybe November. So maybe, I don't know if I was later in the casting or not, but eventually I got the call, and very excited for it.
So what did you know about Reelfoot going into it? Did you do your research, or you just kind of walked in and said, we'll see what this is like?
I'm a researcher, Stephen. Okay. So I told you I have my notes. I've got your spreadsheet pulled up. So I watched all the seasons that are posted. I mean, obviously some of the stuff you can't really see. They're like, 3 episodes of some seasons, and some of the stuff, the live streams are gone. So, but I watched everything that was available on Reelfoot. So I kind of made my notes. Oh, when do we merge? When do they, do redemptions? Where are idols found? So I did a lot of studying. I kind of like to go in things prepared to know. I know it doesn't mean anything. Clearly, it doesn't mean anything because none of the stuff I studied helped me this year, this season. But knowing what to expect. Maybe.
Well, I mean, some players were even blindsided by the fact you don't vote someone out till day 3.
Yeah. Right. Like I knew that. And that was part of my going in saying, I do not want to start early. I do not want to start playing hard super early because I knew I had some time. So yes, for me, going in and having some knowledge of like how past seasons go, how many people on jury, when do you merge, when do they, how many vote out today, all that kind of stuff was helpful for me just in like, especially in the moment when there's like chaos raining down. It's nice to have something like, okay, well, I know that this happened, so probably jury here. Again, not all super helpful this season, but at least it gave you a little bit of like calm in the storm.
Did you have any other preparation work you did before the game?
I started going to the gym. I'm active. I play soccer and I coach my kids and stuff, so I'm not wasn't totally inactive, but I did start going to the gym and training and stuff like that. I had my little, as Charlie taught us, I did my little gripper strength stuff. So I had my fire starter. I was making fires. My little boy was making fires with me leading up to it. So yeah, I did a lot of prep. I was ready.
So you fly out to Tennessee.
Drove.
Did you carpool with anyone, or was anyone you were opening a sequester room before the game began that made any difference?
No, I drove up, and the night before, it's funny. I was sitting at the bar of one of the restaurants, one of the many fine restaurants in Union City, and there were two women kind of at the bar, kind of like one like a seat over from me, and another kind of around the corner from us. Come to find out, it was Jessica and Nina. I didn't know, but like I kind of was like eyeing them and thinking, okay, maybe I know that, maybe those are people, maybe not. But I was like, it could also be plants; they could be testing me, and I'm not going to say a word. So I was very good.
Really going deep to make sure you're worthy of playing the game.
Yes, exactly. So I saw those two, and then when I saw them the next day, I was like, oh, okay, they're here. But they were not in my sequester room. In my sequester room was Juan and Allison. And Allison came in pretty quickly after me, and she was kind of like fun, silly in the room, and brought a good energy. And Juan kind of came late, and he was very reserved. I certainly was planning. I was like, as soon as I get out on the mat with either of these two, I'm gonna play with them. But unfortunately, like, they were not on my tribe in the beginning. I was hoping we could come back together at some point, but it was pretty locked in, I think, when we finally did reconnect. Although not so much with Juan, but so unfortunately the pre start of the game connections for me did not really help very much. So I certainly told Nina, I saw her the night before, and she was like, "Oh, I kind of remember you." So I don't know if she really remembered me or not.
So you start on the Purple Tribe, Kanane Tribe. What was your initial impression of this group of people?
So when I walked out to the front porch, and I think I saw Rob there, who's like, obviously a Hulk of a man. I'm like, okay, we got some brawn on the team. That's great. And I looked over and I saw Janai and Isaiah kind of to my left, and I'm like, okay. And Isaiah was super friendly, bubbly, and then other people came out. I noticed Nina came out and she had a cane. I was like, okay, Nina's got a cane. Noted. And then kind of like we're all sitting there, we're like, wait, are we at 9? How many? Is it 8? And then Sam comes out like grabbing stuff, kind of like, they're rushing me, right? So Sam comes out, really started it out perfectly for her, for the way her personality played the rest of the game. So I was really in size them up mode. I felt good about them. We couldn't really see the other tribes, so I didn't know other than Allison and Juan and potentially Jessica, who was on the other side of things. But I looked at our tribe and I said, okay, we got some, Trav was there. I said, we got some like strengths, some athletic people. We seem to have like a good mix of people. I didn't have that much in terms of first impressions right on the porch.
I'm curious,
okay, looks good.
Coming to the game, did you have any strategies set out in mind, or were you just going to kind of see what happened when you got there?
Yeah, I mean, so coming in, I was a little bit nervous because I felt like I was probably going to be one of the older people. I'm turned 50 this year. I feel like I play younger, but and kind of act younger, but I am older. And I was
Did you lie about your age, or were you truthful?
No, I just figure I'm going to be telling other little lies out there. I don't want to try to keep up with anything like this, and I figure, this is going to be my character. I've got young kids. I figure, I don't know how many people are going to have families, young families, like, so I'm a bit introverted, at least in groups when I first, meet people. So I was nervous really about that. And in my previous online games, I was like a kind of a threat. Like, so I was always like, once you get to merge, like having to like protect myself. So I was really kind of cognizant of that going in. And so my strategy going into the game was like, okay, I want to keep a lot of threats around me. Big people, strong people, social people, strategic people. I want to keep all those people around me because I feel like I will be one of those people as well. That was my, that was kind of my goal going in. And the other thing I'll say is when I play, I kind of always say I will play and can play with anyone. So I try to build relationships with every single person all the time. Nobody's cut off. Nobody's dead to me after they make a move against me. Like, I'm always open to something. For me, it is all game and it is fun. And if I can, end up playing with a person who voted out my tightest ally on day one, it's great. So those were kind of the things going in that I was thinking. So, I see like Rob and Nina kind of exposed herself as a pretty good puzzle player. Lachey and Isaiah, very social, also, good strategically. I was like, okay, these are good people to kind of have around. Trav, same, like good people to have around. Cause when we get to merge, I'm not going to be, the person who catches a stray with some crazy idle plays or something like that. That's kind of my thinking.
So you have this opening reward challenge, which is pretty intense. How was that as a welcome to Reelfoot for you?
Oh my God, that was crazy. It was awesome. I mean, it's probably my favorite challenge just because it was so big. Mm-hmm. It feels like it felt like one of the like Survivor challenges, and just how hard it pushes you, I think. Mm-hmm. And also, like, we didn't know the people on the tribes at all. So you're like, as you're running, you're like, are you okay? Do you need help? Or you're trying to like, mm-hmm. Figure out, am I, but you want to win. So like you're kind of like game face on, but like, I'm also meeting you and setting expectations for the rest of the game. So you're like doing this little balancing act, but it was awesome. I mean, I'm a person who likes the physical stuff. I wanted to run. I wanted to have long runs. I felt like that was a place where I could excel. A lot of the like carnival games, throwing rings on stuff, and even getting people through the frame. Like, I was good at that stuff. I think I was a real advantage to my tribe, and that was important for me to establish pretty early on. Because I'm a little older. I was like, I don't want to get trapped in this, like, is he really that helpful for the tribe? Let's just vote him out because we don't really need him. I wanted to kind of show my show that I could be a real asset in the challenges, and that was a good way for me to do that. Plus, the whole time we were running, I was like, I felt like I was trying to like carry more than my share, and I was like kind of hanging in the back. I'm like, hey, John, you doing all right? Hey, Sam, you doing okay? I felt like I was kind of trying to be really supportive and connect with like all the people. Me and Lachey were running for a lot together. I think that's where we really kind of like had our first little bonding together, because we were like helping each other. And I think we could just kind of tell how we were running that together, that we were, just we could work together. We could work really well together. So for me, it was a great like trial by fire where, yeah, it was challenging and that was really cool. And I love that part of it, but it was also like a really long experience where you could really like see people pretty quickly raw, because everyone's like about to vomit from drinking too much water, eating mayonnaise, or running too hard. And so it was like, you kind of got a little flash of like, okay, what are these people going to be like? Some people are running way up front. Some people are hanging back. Some people are in between. Some people are saying, hey, let me help here. Let me help. And people aren't really caring anything. So you got a really good sense of people.
Anyone stand out to you in a good or bad way?
I mean, obviously Rob carried like the water jug, like the whole way pretty much. Like he stood out from the beginning. So you knew he was going to be strong. I knew he was somebody I wanted to play with for a while. He was a great kind of threat to have in front of me. But he also was like a pretty like low key guy. He wasn't like, gruff or anything like that. He was just trying to help. He wasn't like trying to run the show or anything. So he stood out. Again, Lachey, like I told you, we were running together a lot of that time. And so, I just got a really good, I built a really good connection kind of immediately with her. On the puzzle section, I think it ended up being me and Sam and Nina kind of doing most of the puzzle. Most of our people, I think, kind of initially we all were jumping in there, and a couple of people said, hey, let's just let 3 or 4 people do it here. It might've been Isaiah doing the puzzle too, but so you could kind of see those people. Oh, I can tell Nina's good at this. Sam's good at this. Isaiah's good. Okay. So it just gives you little clues to that stuff. And those were kind of the people who stood out. I don't remember a lot about like Jerry in those first couple of days, Geraldine in those first couple of days. I don't remember much about Trav in that first one. I think he was maybe running ahead a little bit. I'm sure he wasn't, but I don't have huge memories of him in that first bit.
So you win the challenge. You get a hammock. You get a chair. You go to your new campsite and you set up camp. How are those opening hours in the game for you? Did anything important happen?
So the opening hours were pretty good from my experience. I didn't see a lot of people playing hard at first, like running around chatting a little bit. Trav particularly was kind of starting to chat pretty early on. And I heard Rob say it. I mean, Trav said the same thing to me. Hey, we're really tight. I'm not going to talk to you a lot, but we're really good. I've got you, And I'm like, okay. and then he proceeds to talk to everybody all the time. And you're like, he's not really talking to me anymore. That's weird. But besides that, like, I didn't think a whole lot was going on. We were trying to like set up our camp, but nobody really wanted to be a leader. We were trying to figure out where are we going to place our fire, where are we going to put everything. And I ended up doing like a lot of the camp setup stuff, like played a big role in a lot of that stuff. I actually didn't start our first fire. I got our first fire set up. Janai started our first fire. She jumped right in and did it. She was great. And I would say like those first couple hours, I was kind of connecting a little bit with Janai just because I think we were the older two and we were kind of a little more focused on camp stuff. And some people were kind of collecting wood and stuff. But those first couple hours, not a whole lot. This is where I got a little sick. I think I probably overdid it on the first challenge. Coming back to camp, I like kind of going. And that evening, I started feeling bad and was kind of laying down. And I could see people starting to scatter. I think this is when people started finding letters and stuff. And I was just not in a great place. And I was kind of laying there. And at one point, Lachey came over to me. And this was what kind of locked in our relationship for the rest of the time. Like I would never have written her name down, except in the final one. She came over to me. She said, hey, I know you're not feeling great right now, but I want to let you know people are playing. You got to try to get up and get yourself in conversations. There are letters around. And she kind of like helped me kind of get into that game immediately. And I will forever be like appreciative of her for like kind of like going out on a limb and doing that for me because, she didn't have to do that. So that was a really important moment, but I still felt horrible. And I tried to get up and I talked a little bit with Rob and Trav there in the beginning. And what I'm just going to chatter on for a second, Stephen, you can just stop me if I need to. That second morning when we got up too, I was feeling really bad. I was throwing up that first morning as well. Not quite as bad as the second morning, which we can talk about at some point. But I got sick that first morning, but I kind of recovered and I was fine the rest of the day. But what I could tell I say this, and I said this in some of my confessions, like it may have been a bit of a blessing and a curse for me because it kind of forced me to start slow. I am somebody who I think would have been in a lot of those conversations. And I was, like I said, going in thinking mentally, like you've got to slow yourself down. You can't go too crazy because I do have a tendency to kind of get revved up. And so I think that just forced me to slow down. Now, unfortunately, I think I played on my back foot for the rest of the game because of it. But what I did do is I saw, okay, I see a bunch of duos forming here. I see Trav and Rob forming. I see Nina and Geraldine forming. I know Geraldine said, I don't think anybody clocked me. And I'm like, I think everybody clocked you and Nina. We're a tight pair. Lachey and Isaiah, definitely a pair. So I kind of saw this and I thought, okay, I am clearly behind. But now I see these pairs and maybe I can just attach myself to those. And so that was kind of my goal, is to attach myself to Rob and Trav. I thought they were great, kind of physical shields. That's not all, but kind of, just to dumb it down a little bit, they're great physical shields. I like Nina and Jerry a lot. I think like game wise, I could have really played with them. I tried so hard with Nina and she was just kept things so close to the vest. I think I could never like fully trust her. I think she knew I could never fully trust her. I really wanted to work with her. I was like, we could be good together, but I couldn't get comfortable with her. and clearly I don't think she could get comfortable with me. I ended up really connecting with Jerry. That took a little while because I felt like she was so close to Nina all the time. I was very hesitant, but I ended up really, by the end, I would say Jerry was probably one of my very tightest allies in the whole thing. But there in the beginning, I really saw those two as a pair and wanted to like connect with those two. And then Lachey and Isaiah, I felt like I already was connected with. And the funny thing about all those three is there was one in those three that I felt much closer to. I felt much closer to Rob. I felt like Trav didn't really have much time for me. He just really didn't think much of me. Lachey and Isaiah, I felt like Lachey would protect me from Isaiah because I knew Isaiah was a gamer, but I felt like Isaiah never really connected one-on-one with me that well. That's probably my fault as much as anything. But I felt that like distance between us. And then the same with Nina and Geraldine, which I said, like eventually I got much tighter with Geraldine than I ever did with Nina, even though I felt like that was a group that was probably made for me. So that's the way I saw it all coming out. And then obviously you have some of the other people who were Janai and Sam, who I didn't really see that connected in that structure, but they were obviously, tighter with other people.
A comment from Josh Spitzer here.
Yeah.
Because I was worried about you getting sick on day 3, but the pleasure of babysitting you there, and you were fully cognitive and got the break you needed to go far. So was this heat exhaustion? Was this dehydration?
I think it was a lot of that. I think it was all that stuff. I think it was heat exhaustion, overexertion, probably some dehydration, though I was trying to drink a lot. I think it was probably lack of sleep too. Like I in my past, I've done like lots of distance races, triathlons and marathons and ultra marathons and stuff. And I push myself. It's kind of one of my fatal flaws. And so there are like 100 pictures of me at the end of a race laying down after throwing up, so
a race rite of passage.
Yeah. So I know that about myself, but I was also in a situation where I couldn't like really take care of myself properly and kind of like, drink a bunch of Gatorade or, rest in cold AC or something and get your body temp down. So it definitely was probably a lot of those things. And yeah, that day 2, that night and that day 2, I felt so bad and I could not stop. As we were walking up to the challenge, I had to stop every like 10 minutes and throw up. And I just thought, initially I was like, I'm going to have to leave because I don't think I can physically make it up there. And about halfway through the walk, I said, I can do this, but I hope they don't pull me for this. I was in a very bad place, and my whole tribe was so supportive, and trying to help me. But again, I was like, I've already struggled here, and now again on day 3, when we're getting into the serious, we're going to vote people out, I'm like looking like I wouldn't say I was looking like I was an anchor or anything like that on the tribe, but I certainly wasn't lifting the tribe up, which is what I wanted to be doing the whole time, so I was really worried. But yeah, I remember sitting over there. They said, look, you're pulled for this challenge. It was the snake catch race, whatever it's called.
Hot pursuit.
Yeah. Hot pursuit, which again, I thought I would have been super helpful at. Like that is one of my things. And by the time we got up there, I was like, I probably could do this. And they were like, shut up, sit down. So I did. I sat there with Josh and a couple other people. And yeah, it was like the 45 minutes with ice on my neck in the shade, just to like bring my temperature down and just like, drink a bunch of water that I needed. And honestly, from that moment on, I didn't feel bad at all. So I just needed that moment. But yeah, I was afraid I was going to get pulled out, but I did feel good. By the time I got there sitting with Josh, I felt good. And had y'all let me, I would have probably run that race to my detriment, I suspect, but I would have done it.
So a question from Nate. Do you think being sick early on helped lower your threat level?
It did. It definitely did. I think it also affected me. Like I did not feel that strong for a lot of the thing. But I think it was almost too low at that point. Like, I think and we can talk about this more later. Like, I was really worried coming into Merge that I was going to be a huge threat. And particularly like the last 2 challenges before Merge, the Outcast and the Table Maze, I played a big role in both of those. And I think got noticed by the other tribe. So I definitely was worried about that. But I also had that, like, I'd been sick and all that kind of stuff. So I think it helped lower the threat level, but I also think it was easy to see me kind of being like pulled along in the game because I was like, I had struggled for a while. Certainly in pre-merge, I had great positioning and I was actively positioning myself, but I don't think I had a whole lot of agency about what was happening in that tribe. And that was like something I've never really experienced in, my short career of like online games. And it was something I was, trying to figure out how to work around that come in merge. It was a very different situation than I've ever found myself in. So I think I might have been too low of a threat, unfortunately, at that point. And I was having to like really try to play hard.
I want to talk about two of the opening twists you encounter as you get to the camp that first time. The first is you find a cryptex.
Mm-hmm.
What were your thoughts on seeing this, and did you want to open it?
I definitely wanted to open it. I'm generally pretty good at puzzles. So I think had I been with it in that, in those kind of hours where people were looking at letters and stuff, I might have had a better shot. Now, actually, when Lachey told me, I kind of got up, and I can't remember if it was the next morning or what, when Isaiah finally solved it. But I remember I think it was me, or I was with somebody who found our U, which was kind of back over, kind of way far away. Once I realized people were looking for letters, I found one. I might have been with Lachey, or I might have been with Geraldine. I can't quite remember who I was with. But we went over and I talked with Lachey and Isaiah, and we started kind of thinking it. And then Isaiah, like, you could tell he figured it out. He's like, oh, and he ran straight over. I wanted to figure it out. I actually, when I realized what was going on, I'm very happy for public advantages, which I thought it was at the time, to not be the one who gets it, but to know who gets it. That's kind of my approach when it comes to those kind of public things, is like, I don't need to be the one getting it, but I definitely want to be in the know. So I felt like I was good, even though I got a slow start to that. And I would have, if it had been a secret, I would have loved to have opened it.
In addition, you each receive 1/3 of a hidden immunity idol when you get to camp the first time, essentially a beat and a string. What was your thought on that as kind of the defining season twist? No hidden immunity idols, but you have to kind of get people to give you their parts of an idol to be safe.
Yeah. I mean, we weren't certain that there were no hidden immunity idols. But I think we did quickly suspect, I mean, that's 3 idols essentially on our tribe and 3 on the other. It'd be crazy for them to put a whole lot of other advantages, but those only lasted till like vote 8. So we were certainly thinking, okay, maybe idols come later in the game. My thought about those things is, great. What I was kind of publicly saying, and what I really thought is like, let's all of us save these things until merge. Let us use these against the other tribe for merge. We're not using these. So I think Aliana the other day said, maybe I'm crazy, but I was thinking, I'm never giving this thing away. And I'm kind of the same way. I'm like, nobody's getting this. Certainly not before merge. And in merge, absolutely, I'll give it to my ally to save somebody. I'm very much for that. But before pre-merge, no. These are in my mind, pre-merge is all about building up your social capital, your tools, your advantages, your idols. Like, build all that stuff up, build all your relationships, and then you spend them after you merge. And so, in my mind, those beads shouldn't even come into play in pre-merge. Obviously, they did a little bit, but
Other tribe.
Yeah.
So Josh confirmed that you were never told at any point if there was or wasn't anything hidden in the woods. So my question is, were you searching still?
Initially, no. I mean, the first day when I was walking down in my very first confessional, I said, Kiri, can we go back up to the very beginning of the trail? And I started my first confessional like looking in a couple places because I thought I spotted something. After that kind of initial, like that first day though, and I think after we kind of like sat with it, I think we were fairly convinced that there weren't going to be any idols pre-merge, just because there was so much in the game. I looked a little bit here and there just to be safe, and certainly some people were looking. Like, I know Sam looked a couple times when she thought she was going. She was very desperately searching, but I didn't think anything was there. I wasn't searching super hard ever. I started searching again in merge, but but not pre-merge really.
You mentioned that first night was really tough.
Yeah, I was not feeling great. We were sleeping in our luxury camp. That was we essentially had a pallet with plywood on top of it, which I think you can poll the tribe. You can poll our tribe. I'm not so sure that was more comfortable than the ground. I didn't sleep. I slept maybe 30 minutes, 40 minutes. I was not feeling great. I woke up obviously and got sick pretty early on, but I felt okay after that and made rice. But that night was terrible. It was cold. That's the night I wasn't sleeping and trying to because we've just met these people, you're trying to keep warm. And I remember in the night saying, do you mind if I'm touching, if my back's touching you there, are you okay? Trying to have the consent discussion that you're rubbing up against everybody. Nothing's happening here, but are you okay that I'm touching you? It was just so cold. We were all kind of basically 8 of us huddled on that pallet trying to keep warm. People were at the feet, people were side by side, and you end up part of the night with your knees up and you're like, oh, I can't sleep like this. I must have gotten up, and Janai was right beside me. I mean, me and her were getting up every 30 minutes to pee and throw wood on the fire. And at some point we kind of let the fire die and it got really cold late evening. So it was a hard night. I definitely thought maybe I just walk up to the lodge. Maybe I just say, I'm done here. I definitely had those thoughts.
Josh would like to remind you that they just gave you the beginning of a shelter and that you didn't do anything with.
Okay. There was only so much we could do with the way our tribe, with the way our camp was set up. I mean, to be fair, we had the one tree over there that we tried to put a tarp over us. So that first night we had the pallet down and we had a tarp kind of hanging over. I know people thought it was very funny to make fun of all of our different camp setups, especially when the rain was coming. But we were just limited in the tools we had. I mean, yeah, if we had Frank out there, maybe we could have done something
crazy. That's people need to win in the reward challenge. A visit from Frank.
We didn't have a Frank out there, and I was probably the best at camp. And sorry, but I'm just not that. I'm kind of crafty, but I needed some pipe cleaners and glue to really get my camp on.
Spoken like a father of elementary school students.
Yes.
Nate's asking, since there's no hidden meat idols hidden out there, would there be any other advantage you would like to have seen hidden instead?
That's a good question. So, I mean, we can talk about this now. So for me, the fact that there were no swaps and no other real advantages other than the bead idols really made this challenging. Because those are the things that can help shift a power structure, can help shift momentum. And so when you don't have an opportunity to swap and get to know people, make connections with the other side, it really limits your options once you do merge. Same with not having extra votes or, steal votes, whatever, any of those other things. It's hard to do that. So on top of that, you had these pre-existing relationships that I also did not know about or did not expect were there. So things were happening. I was like, that just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Why are people voting against their interests, in the situation we were in? So with all that in mind, and we can talk more about that as we go on, but maybe one of the advantages where you're spending more time. So I did actually when Chad was coming over and when Colby were coming over to our camp, it was a chance to kind of get to know them. It probably made me a lot more interested in working with Chad when we did merge. Same with Colby. So I think more of that, hey, spend a night at the other camp, or some of those or even a mutiny or a switch tribes or something like that, or, force you to switch tribes, but give you safety that night or something. I don't know. Some of those things maybe would have been helpful just to mix it up a little bit. Cause I feel in a way we were kind of limited in the tools we had to really play hard this season. It was fun. It was kind of an old school version of the game. It was just not what I was kind of ready for. And unfortunately, I felt like I was at a disadvantage for my own fault and for other reasons,
Before the first immunity challenge, how are you feeling about your place in the tribe?
The first immunity challenge.
So
I felt
right before going into that.
Yeah. I felt okay. So that was, I'm just kind of
End of day 2.
End of day 2. And that was before hot pursuit. Okay. So that was before I'd gotten really sick that second day. So I'd been sick earlier that day, but I'd been better. And I think, what was our first one? Oh yeah, that was the carrying people on the stretcher and everything. So I'd done well in that challenge. I think I kind of bounced back from being sick in the morning. I was doing fire around camp. I was making rice. I was like I said, at that point, kind of like trying to attach myself to those threes. I kind of said in the beginning of like kind of in my like pre-merge stuff, I felt like I was a lot of people's like third or fourth, not very many people's first or second, maybe a couple here and there, and very few people's like 6, 7, 8, 9. And that was kind of a good position for me. So going into that first challenge, and then well, we didn't go to the first vote out. I felt good about my position. I wasn't super worried about it. I felt like there were a couple people who were clearly like, between Sam kind of not getting along with everybody, and then Nina and Geraldine a little bit not getting along with her, and Janai kind of like not being super part of the group. Like I felt like there was enough, and Isaiah and Trav both being a little bit like over strategic. I feel like there are plenty of other people that I think the focus could shift on versus me. So I felt fine for those first couple of days where I was, even though I had been sick and kind of not totally in control or have like, I've got my number one and I'm in charge here. Like I definitely did not have that situation, but I still felt okay about it.
Can you rank people in your tribe from most important to your game to least important of your game?
Very early on, I would say Lachey and Rob were there. Now, this is one of my big mistakes. I think I overestimated my relationship with Rob pretty much the whole game. I think I was just much lower on his list than he ever was on mine. But so it goes. But those two for me were definitely the most important. In those early days, I really wanted to work with Trav. But I could tell he didn't really like. I'm going to call it didn't like me that much. It wasn't that he didn't like me that much. He just wasn't feeling, as connected or like, whatever in the game with me. And then Isaiah, who, again, I say, like, I never connected that much with him, but I knew Lachey was really tight with Isaiah. And so because of that, I felt really good with Isaiah. Even if me and him didn't have the best relationship in the world, we didn't have a bad relationship. I didn't feel like we were super close for whatever reason. Tell me the question, because I kind of started rambling again.
Rank the players from most to least important.
Yeah. So Lachey and Rob, I'll say Lachey first, Rob second. Then Isaiah probably third. Sam was probably actually there and fourth for me. I haven't spoken much about her. Sam was, she kind of like was the lightning rod for the group. Like she was so much fun. She would say whatever was on her mind. And most of the time that was hilarious. And sometimes that was like a little like upsetting to people. But I loved her and I felt like super close with her. And I felt like she was another person who like, I was probably really high up on her list. I felt like she would never, or it would take a long time and a lot of like effort to get her to turn on me. So she was probably fourth with me. Geraldine definitely was up there. Early on, she wasn't. It was a slow burn for me and Geraldine, but I'll go ahead and say that it was Geraldine and then probably Trav and Nina and Janai. And honestly, I probably should have Janai up farther because I think personally we connected a lot more. But from a game perspective, we never really talked. And part of that is me because I was very slow in those first 2 days to talk game, both by strategy, but also because I was like sick half the time. And I know she started trying to talk game with me kind of, maybe the end of the second day. But it was like a little too late. So personally, I was probably much closer with Janai. I felt like we talked a lot and we were in similar life places, but game wise, I think she was probably bottom of the list, unfortunately.
I have a couple questions here from Lexington. The first question, Did this experience inspire you to continue applying for the show?
Yes, definitely. Definitely Lex. I played with Lex in that second org that I mentioned. He's fantastic and should apply for Reelfoot for next season. Yeah, I mean, it was really hard. But hard in a really fun way, in a way that like you're like proud of yourself afterwards. So yeah, I'm definitely going to keep applying for the show.
And then we haven't talked as much about the pace. We're just getting into the vote out section. But overall, how did the game pace feel to you? Was it fast, slow, just right?
The first couple days were definitely slow, and I think that's by design, and that's good because I would hate to go out and start voting people out the first day. I don't think that would be, I just don't think that would be. I don't think it'd feel good because it's really hard in those first couple hours, especially if you're doing some challenges, to try to vote people out that quickly. Like it'd feel gross. It's like, it's like some of the Survivor season where they vote people out like right on the beach the first. It's like, come on, that's terrible. So that part felt a little slow. I know it's intentionally slow, and I felt like it was kind of just right. Once we got into the middle of the week, especially there was a day where we did, I think, like 5 challenges and 5.
Day 6.
Oh my God, that felt like craziness. So yeah, that definitely felt like. So can I say all of those things? Yes, it was both too quick, too slow. But in terms of like the time out there, honestly, I could have been out there longer. By the end, like I said, I felt like I was catching my pace there at the end. So I was okay with going longer, other than I just missed my kids and wanted to be able to like kind of talk with them, and but by that time, by like day 6, 7, I was like, okay, I can sleep out here now. My stomach had adjusted. I could eat a handful of rice and be okay for the day. So I don't know. I felt okay. I was ready to go longer.
So you win that first you win that first tribe immunity challenge. You have that second one, which you do not compete in Hot Pursuit, and your tribe loses. You're going to the first tribal council. Talk to me about the scramble and the strategy leading up into that.
Yeah, I definitely felt a little bit nervous because I couldn't compete in that one, and I was afraid that people might think, let's just go ahead and cut Brandon. He's an easy one because he didn't compete. But I felt like I had shown enough in the reward challenges and at camp that I wasn't that much in trouble. So I wasn't that concerned with myself. So I'd heard basically it was kind of down to Janai and Sam. And kind of as I had told you, like Sam was somebody who I know was kind of causing some commotion at camp, but I personally really liked her. And I think we just, I just felt really good with her, and I felt very close game-wise with her as well. And Janai, somebody who I felt close with, but I knew wasn't connecting with a lot of other people. And my goal at that stage anyway was, let us keep our tribe. And honestly, all of pre-merge, I was like, I want all these votes to be unanimous. Like, I know that's boring TV. And I was like, I was doing it for the TV. I was like, I was not. I was doing it for the game. I wanted to win. And I was like, I don't care if it's boring. I want these all to be like unanimous votes where we all take out Janai, because then we can all come back and feel like really solid. That's what was so hard about that second vote for me, is I did not want it to be a big split like it was, but we can talk about that later. But so for me, the Janai Sam vote, it pretty quickly, I think, got down to those 2 names. And I think most people, I think most people didn't have a strong opinion. And I think Janai hadn't done enough, and Sam had done more with a few people, that she was just saved in that situation.
Was Janai your ideal first boot looking back?
No. We should have tried out sooner, right? And maybe Rob then. Unfortunately, would have been going nonstop to tribals if we'd done that. I feel like I could have worked with Janai. I feel like she was good at challenge. She was like steady, like in that first, I just think about that first reward challenge where we ran so long. She was steady. She wasn't going to give up on anything. She was really helpful around camp. She was like the person who was always there with me when we were doing fires and stuff like that. So I think we could have built something really, really strong. It probably wasn't my perfect choice. I honestly don't know what would have been better though at that point. And again, my goal was I just want everybody to vote kind of together on this. And so she became the de facto vote. But in my long-term game, again, I was still in the mindset of like keep threats around. And you can argue, and this is kind of crappy to say, like Janai at Merge probably would not have been a huge target. And so it'd have been bad if it was me and her at Merge and a couple other people. Like I would have become a target before her, I suspect. Who knows? That could be totally wrong. Sorry for even putting that out in the ether, but you know, that's just kind of the way Survivor works sometimes.
Another question from Lexington. Talk about the balance between emotional strategic in the game. Did you have any challenges with, how personal, emotional a game like this gets when you're living with someone for 7 days in the middle of nowhere?
It is hard. I mean, even in our online stuff, it's hard to vote people out. But when you're living with people and you're like, oh my God, I know that she helps me make rice in the mornings. Do I really want to get, I know he really helps with firewood and they really don't do much of anything. So there's certainly that part of it. I think I can be a bit of an introvert and I feel like I am somebody who can kind of disconnect a little bit emotionally. And so for me in this game, there are absolutely emotional connections with every single person I played with. And I still feel those very, very strongly. But I also feel like in these games, you have to disconnect that to some extent. Now, there are people like Lachey and probably Jerry at the end who I wouldn't have voted against. And that'd be to my detriment, probably, at least for Lachey. I think she would have easily beaten me. And other games that I've played, I've become more of a loyal player in the end. And I've said, you know what, I'm going to play a really hard game and get myself to the end and defend that game. And I think in most of my games, I felt like I had a winning game. In this particular game, I don't know that I would have had a winning game going to the end, just because of the circumstances of my game and the way I was able to play. But at some point in my mind, the way you have to play Survivor or games like Survivor is you have to be a little bit cutthroat, particularly in the beginning, but you do also have to find some people you can trust, and you have to like go with that. And sometimes that's to your benefit, and sometimes it's not. And that's just kind of the way this game plays out sometimes.
Your fourth immunity challenge is going to be sumo at sea. Who do you compete against?
Oh my God. I go up against Colby, who's like a third of my age. Okay, maybe less than a half of my age, and like twice my size. I'm like, okay, they're going for the easy point here. And I tried initially to like get him off balance. And I like had a moment where I was like, oh my God, I might have this. And then he like just nope, push me in. So Colby made pretty quick work of me. And then Chad I went up against as well. And Chad I thought I had a better shot at Chad, but he was like solid. I couldn't get anything on him. And he pushed me in pretty quickly too. So I had not a great showing at Sumo at Sea, which was very disappointing for me, to be honest.
So this is going to lead to what ends up being the Trav blindside, which is probably going to be one of the blindsides this season. How did this come about?
This for me was the craziest.
And this is exactly what you said you don't want to see happen, where you have like a 5-3 split. You want it to be a 7-1.
Absolutely. And because at this time in my mind, I had these two lead groups that I felt like I was trying to be the third for. That was Rob and Trav, and it was Lachey and Isaiah. And unfortunately, these were colliding, right? It was really coming down to Trav versus Lachey. And I was talking a lot more at this point in time with Rob. And so probably leaning in that direction. Again, thinking, going in Merge, I want to have a lot of targets around me. So Trav and Rob being there, I knew they were louder. Rob was physically louder. Trav was vocally louder. So I knew those would be great people to have around me come Merge if people start getting, trying to take out big threats. but I was so connected to Lachey that I could not, like, she was just somebody who I absolutely trusted. And so when it came down to that, and this was a hard one for me too, because again, I didn't have a great person that I was like offering as an alternative. And I think Sam was kind of brought up a couple of times, and maybe even Geraldine had been brought up a couple of times. And I probably would have gone for those first if it were up to me, just because I felt like those were the people who we could maybe get more of a unanimous vote on. But it became pretty clear that it was last minute. So I remember walking to tribal thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do right now. And so I remember talking with Isaiah on that walk saying, are we sure we're doing this? Because he felt, I think, very similar to me in that he didn't really want to take out Trav, but the fact that Trav was coming after Lachey was just a non-starter. And I think that's what pushed us that way. And I knew I didn't have a great relationship with Nina, so I was kind of less concerned about that, but I knew Rob was going to be blindsided. And that was something that I was very much worried about. Coming back, like, would he be like super upset, or would he say, I get it, I understand? And I didn't know how that was going to play out. But that's the way I was going in, was like, okay, we're doing this. I hope we can pull Rob back in. In some ways, that's good, because cut out Rob's first person and maybe he gets tighter with Nina. That's not the way it happened. He got tighter with Nina, but that was kind of the thinking going into it.
Trav and Lachey have history from playing Outlast to each other the previous year. At what point are you starting to learn about some players have these connections, both explicitly from other games or just they've known each other in passing? And what were you doing about that?
Right around here is when I knew that. So Lachey had told me she'd played with Trav, and he was a gamer and all that kind of stuff. So I knew they had some history. I knew she'd played with Jess. She told me that. Sam had told me she'd played with Chad. So I was like, oh, so there is more going on. I think at that point I knew that Rob had won even another game. I didn't know that I didn't know he was connected to Allison through that game. Which I think he said he wasn't so connected, but clearly it was connected enough. So I knew that was an issue. Aliana said it the other day. Like, I don't think going into a game, if I know people, I'm not necessarily going to play with them, right? They're an option and they're somebody I might gravitate to first, but if it doesn't work out, I'm okay not playing with that person. In a game where we don't have a ton of things that switch up momentum, no swaps, not a lot of advantages other than the beads, like, well, those become the tools that you do have, those pre-existing relationships. So had I known that we weren't going to have a whole lot of advantages later in the game, I maybe would have been a little more concerned about that. But at that time, I wasn't that concerned because I felt like I knew some of the connections going on. I was like, okay, well, we can use Sam knowing Chad to kind of maybe pull him. Okay, we can use Lachey knowing Jessica. My only like tangential relationship was Jessica had played in a Vanquish season before me, and I think I'd met her at like the Orlando event last year, and I'm like, okay, and I had dinner with her kind of 2 seats over. So I'm like, okay, well, I guess maybe I have a pre-existing relationship too. So I don't know. I didn't think that much about the pre-existing relationships at that time. I really didn't think about it at all during the game. It was only once I got to jury and started really understanding it more that I said, well, shoot, that was a big part of this game that I didn't see.
When do you think there was going to be a swap? I mean, at this point, end of day 3, 4 players have been voted out. Were you thinking like, tomorrow morning it'll happen? Or
yeah, I can't remember now. I could have told you there. I think the swaps typically happen end of day 3 or beginning of day 4. Usually it kind of happened around there, or maybe it was end of day 3 or beginning of day 4, I think is when they usually happen. So that's when I was kind of anticipating it. And I think we kind of knew. Yeah, I think we knew that they were going to Outcast Camp because of the way they were saying it at Tribal, you're going to Outcast Camp or whatever. So we knew there was a possibility of people coming back. So I knew that all kind of happened around day 4, 5, that stuff. So I was anticipating like every challenge. I was like, it's got to happen now. It's got to happen now. I was telling everybody, it's got to happen now. And that's why I was also so desperate to like keep us super like unanimous in our voting, because I'm like, it could happen at any moment. We've got to go in with a strong group. And so when we voted out Trav and knew that Rob and Nina were like left out, And when they came back and like Rob was pissed and Nina was saying she was okay, but I don't think she was so okay. You know, that kind of, in a way, made that next Nina vote kind of straightforward, just because we were like, okay, we got to kind of cut out these people who've been left out because a swap's coming imminently. We've got to get rid of these people who could be loose ends that, you know, would flip.
So how much was the redemption or outcast twist influencing your vote, or did it not influence them at all? Were you thinking like how much were you considering? Oh, this person could come back.
No, I mean, we certainly thought Trav had a good chance of coming back. They once they like voted out Colby and stuff, we're like, okay, they're enough like kind of like people that it's like it's going to be a bit of a toss up who comes back. Like there was no like standout like, oh, Ozzy's there, he's obviously going to come back, right? There's no one who was like far and away like stronger now. Who knows what challenge they did coming back. So I think I certainly wasn't voting on who should I like vote out who's not going to come back. I was not thinking in that way. I mean, we maybe had that thought and conversation, but I don't think we ever like really employed that way of thinking when we were talking about voting people out.
In the morning of day 4, you have an individual immunity challenge. Both tribes will be going to the tribal council, and this is a counting challenge, which you end up winning. Talk to me about this challenge.
So this is one of the ones that I feel like suits me. It's kind of running, a lot of running. Like I've got endurance. I can do that relatively fast, but I kind of quickly said, okay, yeah, there's an element of being fast here, but I think it's going to be more important to try to be as accurate as you can. So I really try to take my time at the stations. And I said, I'm not going to go back to my board and write it down so I can like add it up. I'm going to keep count as I go. And so I said, okay, I'm going to go to my stations and like get solid counts and then just kind of work my way through. So I felt decent about my counts. I had to estimate a couple because there are some crazy ones, matchsticks. Like, yes, my eyes were going cross-eyed. I was like, close enough. So, and then I think Rob and Lachey were both trying to throw their beanbag on the table when I came up with my number, and I got my beanbag on first. So I was first for our team, and ended up having the best number or closest number overall. So that was fantastic, and I felt good about that because I again was starting to feel like especially like after Sumo C and stuff, I felt like I'm performing well, but I want to show like this is my ego talking because it's not very good, right? Like you don't really want to show that you're great. But I was like really happy to win one, and in retrospect, I'm really glad I got one of the immunity idols. Maybe there's an asterisk by it, but I'll take it anyway.
No, there's an asterisk by it.
Yeah.
I mean, do you feel like you would have been in trouble at all had you not won this challenge?
No. I don't think my name was really coming up pre-merge. Again, because I think I'd made myself an asset in challenges and at camp. I think I was everybody's third or fourth at worst. So I feel like I was in a pretty safe position most of pre-merge. Yeah.
Talking about the strategy this round, because my understanding is, it seems like there's 3 names kind of circling around. It's Rob, it's Nina, who just got blindsided, and there is Sam.
Mm-hmm. I think Rob was circulating, and this is one where maybe Lachey was pushing Rob a little bit harder. I still felt really good with Rob then. So I think it's my fault, maybe, for like saying I don't want to vote Rob right now. I felt like I still wanted to have him around for challenges. I can't remember if Colby was out at that point.
Yeah. Well, Colby will get voted out right before you. But
okay. Yeah. So we didn't know that Colby was. So I think we still felt the need to we just voted out Trav. I don't think we really wanted to weaken ourselves dramatically yet. So for me, that and Rob just being one of the people I felt closest to, I was kind of like, no, we can't do that. And I think Lachey, if it were up to her, that's who would have gone. But I think and I'm not saying it was me and her who made this decision, but I think in those early stages, like people get knocked out of the mix and people come into the mix. And I think we were kind of that conversation with us, and maybe Isaiah was kind of helping to keep Rob out of that conversation. I think we were able to push Rob out of that conversation. So it really became Nina and Sam. And Nina, because she'd been left out, and I think, I think I had this feeling. I think Lachey had this feeling. Like she was just somebody who held things so close to her chest that it's like hard to know if she, if she was going to be with you or not. So for that reason, Nina was my choice. Sam was another obvious choice, and I think there was a big kind of thing that had happened between Sam and Geraldine and Nina, and so that was like an uncomfortable situation. But again, from a game perspective, Sam was very close with me, with Lachey, with Rob. So I think we were very firm in saying, no, let's not vote Sam out. And I think maybe Isaiah, certainly Geraldine, wanted to keep Nina. So I think that's maybe the way that kind of push and pull happened in that vote out. But I think Lachey and Rob and me kind of were successful in saying, let's take out Nina instead of Sam at this point. But I definitely considered both sides because Nina was great at puzzles. We definitely wanted to keep her for that. But
Nina goes out 6-1. You're going to win the Outcast Challenge. You'll win another immunity challenge. Then you'll have the final pre-merge immunity challenge. This is the blindfold challenge. And this will not go well for your tribe.
Yeah. This is
leading the blind.
Yeah. We also had the Reelfoot balls one that I don't think y'all saw. That was the table maze one. I don't think y'all saw that one, right? That's where Andrew went out.
I think, no, we did.
Did you see that one? Okay.
Yeah.
So both the Outcast and that ball one, the only thing I just want to mention about those two is I was our fire starter on that one. And Rob kind of talked to you about this, how he was like, it was like 20 minutes probably before he was able to get the flint. So the other teams had been like going for 15, 20 minutes starting their fire. And then we went out, and I was really proud and felt like I played a big role in our tribe winning that Outcast tribal. Now, yeah, there were lots of like advantages that they kind of threw at us because it was so windy and so hard to start a fire then. But, I was standing right there beside Rob the whole time saying, and he was so frustrated. Like I could tell he was just ready to like go Hulk, and rip the whole cage apart and just be done with it. And I was like, you got this, man. Just keep going. Just keep going. And I feel like, I helped keep him in the game a little bit. And then I felt like I helped us get to that end and get that fire. So I was really proud of myself there. And in the table maze, there was the standing puzzle. And I made, I was not originally on the standing thing. I think was the third person to try it. And I was like, let me try it. And I pretty quickly got very good at that. They were like we were supposed to do that 3 times, all those things 3 times. They were like 2 ahead of us when I finally got on the standing maze. And I got it. And I feel like I did really well, especially the third one. I went like straight up. I cannot wait to see the video of this. So for those 2 reasons, I was like really excited about those challenges. I also felt like my like threat level was definitely rising. So I just kind of want to mention that because I don't know that was super clear in a lot of the
video for that challenge. We only see the orange tribes side.
Yeah. Okay. So then going into the blind leading the blind, and you were saying it didn't go well for us, and we ended up voting out Sam. And so tell me again now what the question was on that.
Why Sam?
Yeah, that was hard. I don't know who really drove this vote. Because I think a lot of us were very close to Sam. I think Rob was close to Sam. I was close to Sam. Lachey was close to Sam. I think Isaiah was close to Sam. That right there tells you 4. However, we were also very close to Geraldine, and I had become much closer to Geraldine over the last 2 days. I think Lachey was starting to get closer with Geraldine. And I think Isaiah was very close with Geraldine all along. So I don't think it became like, who do we like out of these 2? It's like, okay, who's the best person to take with us to merge? And I think ultimately what we kind of decided as a group, although Rob was not in agreement, was that Sam was just going to be a little more chaotic at merge, which isn't always terrible, but it just was unpredictable. And we were going to go in with pretty tight numbers. So we wanted to have people who we felt a lot firmer with. And that was my hardest vote personally, just because I really like Sam, and I had said, I'm not going to vote for you. And I ended up having to vote for her, and I didn't want to, but I think for where we were at the game, it just made the most sense, but it was definitely a hard vote.
Was Rob an option at all?
Probably for Lachey, he probably should have been at that point, because we did feel like we were getting close to merge. Like I said, this was one of my blind spots. I think I felt, or I overestimated how close I was to Rob. And I underestimated how kind of miffed he was from the tribe blind side. So I think he was kind of an option early on. But again, quickly got like pushed off, because I think enough of us felt okay with him. I think he was trying to build with Lachey, because I think I was saying, you need to talk with Lachey. You two need to get on the same page a little bit more. And so I think he was trying a little bit harder. So maybe it was not so much on the block, because he was clearly like contributing to us winning. And I think that was kind of like helping to keep him in the, in good graces, even though we all realized he was like tough. What we didn't realize is he would have much room to play, because he was, I want to say, I won't say it. He was strong, but he was also relatively laid back, at least from my perspective in camp when we were strategizing and things like that. So I don't think people saw him as a huge like strategic threat once we got to merge. And I started to see a different side right before merge, and then once early merge, like I definitely started to say, oh no. There's more going on here. But I think at that time, like he had definitely downplayed, and he talked about it, I think, in his deep dive. He downplayed that, and he done a good job of downplaying that, because I kind of was like buying a little bit of the strong silent type.
So the merge is happening, but first there's this Outcast Redemption Challenge or Battle Back. One player will be returning. Anyone you wanted to see or not see come back?
We've been talking about it. I was kind of the impression that almost anybody from the other tribe would be good for us, because they seem to be like messy and chaotic over there. So we kind of felt like, if Colby came back, that'd probably be okay for us. Or if like Jay West came back, that was probably kind of who I really wanted, because
coming back would have been fun for everyone. Or at least fun for me.
I think so. So we were kind of thinking that of our tribe, I was okay if Janai come back, because I felt like I hoped that she would like understand a little bit of like why she got out and be kind of happy to come back. And I felt like we had a good enough relationship that maybe I could rebuild with her. I was okay with Nina coming back. Honestly, I didn't have the best relationship with Nina, but I always felt like, and this is why I thought, gosh, we should get on the same page. I always felt with Nina, like, I feel like she's a logical player. I feel like she plays the way I like to play. So I desperately wanted us to work together. And so I thought if she comes back, okay, maybe I can work with her. And she did come back, and I had that conversation. I'm like, I want to work with you and Jerry. Please let me. And it never gelled. And I don't know why. I don't know if our personalities we never could trust it. I don't know what it was, but we just could never get on that same page where she trusted me and I trusted her.
So what was your plan of attack or strategy entering merge?
Purple strong, definitely purple strong. Take out 2 or 3 of them, and if there's 1 or 2 of those that we can pick up, then we start picking off our people. I felt like at that point I had gotten to merge not because of good positioning, but not because I had been a real not because I'd been like running the show or anything on the tribe. So I felt like I needed to do something at merge as well. So I was starting to think like, okay, definitely we'll need to, which is the exact opposite of the strategy I had in my mind. I want to start taking out big threats once we come into the merge. So keep in the numbers, so take out the orange threats, or when I say threats, I mean it in all different ways, right? Like the 3 women, were very clearly tight. Jessica, Allison, and Allie were super, super tight over there. I know they tried to play it off. Allie's like, "Oh, I'm on the bottom." I'm like, "Okay, Allie, sure." It was very clear how tight they were. And Chad was like playing this like double agent thing that I never really bought. I probably should have been more open to him and more welcoming to him, because I think he was a bit more of a gamer. But I had a really hard time trusting people this game. I don't know why.
I can't imagine why I don't trust the Survivor.
More so than other times when you know people are lying to you, but you like, I had a really hard time like trusting people in this game more so than in the past. And so, maybe there's an element of it being in person or something. I thought I'd be able to read people better, and basically what I read is like, no one's being honest with me. So I'm like, I don't trust any of you people.
Is this like to the point of paranoia, or do you think there's like?
Look, I know people who said I was paranoid, and to an extent I was, but is it paranoia if like people are really talking about you and your name is coming up a lot? Like, it's not paranoid if like people are actually talking about you.
Because you will start catching votes as this merge continues.
Yeah. So I know that other side was looking at me, and this is the one place where I think it was maybe misinterpreted it was with Isaiah. Like, I don't know that he was ever really saying my name. I thought I heard him. And at one point he was helping Rob with that memory challenge where we were running up the hill. So I was like, what's up with that? Why are you helping him and you're not like helping me, and you're kind of like blocking me out of stuff? So his actions were a little suspicious. And I think both Nina and Rob were feeding into that, like, so, like egging me on about like, oh, Isaiah's maybe saying it a little bit, but I don't really think so. Maybe it's a little paranoia, but honestly, like, if people are like saying your name, the other tribes are saying your name, and like you catch the end of a conversation where someone who's like on your side is kind of like, okay, let me think of it. I'm like, okay, well, it's not totally paranoid if I kind of like stumble on people like saying and then shutting down as soon as I walk up. So I don't know, maybe a little extra paranoid, but.
So let's start with the merge votes, right?
Yeah.
So what was your strategy going into this vote, and how do you end up with beads?
So we did the challenge at the night before, and we were able to sleep on it. And I was like up and down kind of all night thinking about it. And when I woke up in the morning, I grabbed like Lachey and Isaiah and Rob. And I was like, okay, here's what I think we do. I think we have to we want to pick one of theirs, kind of make it as random as we can. So we don't give them we don't want to show our cards. So we're not going to take their like strongest player who we thought would maybe be Allie. We want to kind of like pick someone else. And we also want to play at least one of our idols and potentially even two on a couple of our people. And we should decide who we think the biggest target is for us. And so that was kind of the first thing we started saying in the morning. And we kind of quickly said, okay, well, let's target either Jess or Allison. And we kind of quickly said, okay, Jess, but we got to keep it really, really quiet. And Nina and Geraldine had joined us at that point. And we kind of said, well, we think maybe Brandon, you're going to be their target. Or maybe because Rob had won, I think, so he was not an option. So I think
Chad had won the immunity at this point.
Okay, so we said, yeah. So maybe it was Rob. I don't think we thought that Rob, or maybe we thought, well, if they didn't Rob out, so be it. But the consensus, at least that first in the morning, was okay, Brandon, maybe we'll play it on you, but let's just keep talking and see what they say and see if we can figure it out. But the goal was like not tell them to play anything. So then what happened is Chad started like making overtures to us and saying, hey, I've got these beads and blah, blah, blah. Let me do this. And I didn't trust him at all. Like, he was, as far as I was concerned, thick as thieves with the three women. And then like coming over and telling us some stuff and then going back and telling them some stuff. I'm like, I am not buying this. I'm certainly not going to give him any real information. I said, look, if you want to be with us, like vote for someone on your tribe and make a mark or something and tell us. And then we can maybe do something further on. And Juan was actually the more important one. And kind of right before we left for tribal, he came over and said, okay, they've just told me that they're going to vote for Lachey. right? So we knew, or we'd heard the information they're voting for Lachey. And of course, we all talked and we're like, do we really think they're doing it? Or we felt like Juan was on the outs. We kind of knew he was, but we also thought, well, but maybe they're like, either Juan is playing with them, trying to get back in their good graces and giving us a fake name, or maybe they're playing Juan, giving him a name to throw us off the scent. So I was still pushing. I want to play 2 idols. Can't we get 3 more beads and play a second idol to kind of protect more people?
Well, I think the challenge is your side that only has 5 beads, right? Nina's claiming she has none, and the other 5 you have 1 apiece.
Yes. There, because Chad had 2 beads, there was some talk of like, well, maybe we could get a bead from Chad or something like that. That was, I think, the way we would pop. But you're right. That was the other big reason why we couldn't, is we felt like we only had 5 beads. So we said, okay, let's do 3. So we did go in thinking, okay, Lachey is possible. And I was talking with her as we were walking. She's like, she thought it was her, and I was like, I don't know. And I'd already, like a little bit earlier, asked her and Rob for their beads. So I had the 3. I had my bead and their 2 beads, and I had those. And I'm like, well, I'm going to play it. I'm like, just let's keep talking to everybody and see if we can figure it out. And to their credit, and honestly, it's to Nina's credit. Like, Nina gave them the name, because I was still thinking, I'm like, well, they have to get really lucky to figure out who we did it, and then on top of that, they have to get lucky to like pick one of us at it, right? Like, it was like
roulette,
2 variables that they had to like really, to beat out. And so I was like, if they do that, then good on them. Well, they had help. So, and this is where like my biggest like kind of frustration came, because to me, it didn't make any sense this round or the next round. Why Nina and Geraldine in the next round, but like, why Nina was like with that other group? Like, it just didn't make sense to me, because if she went with them, I mean, right? Like, oh, I'm going to flip on them because you guys voted me out already. Okay, I get that. But like, you're going to be on the bottom of those, or maybe you're with the women group over there, but you're still going to be the 4th there. And maybe she thought she could win out, but I was like, that's too early to do that. So it didn't make a whole lot of sense to me that anybody would tell them. And so I felt good. And so when Jess played hers, I was like, shoot, Jess played it. So then I'm up there and thinking, who am I going to play it on? And I'm like, I'm just trying to look at them and think, who are they going to play? And I know that they told us Lachey, but I truly thought that was like just to throw us off. And so the only other person, and Isaiah was like making a face at me, like, but I didn't know what he was trying to say. He said he was trying to tell me to play it on Lachey, but I just didn't understand, because I was thinking maybe I should play it on Isaiah. That was like more, or Rob even. I was thinking, who should I play this on? And in the end, I'm like, I've got an idol, and I have no idea who they're going to vote for. I certainly don't want to go out right now. And so defensively and like kind of maybe cowardly a little bit, I'm like, okay, I'm going to play it on myself and live to fight another day. And I feel at the very least we go in with, I think it would be 5-5 plus we think maybe we have Juan, so maybe 6-4 really. So I still felt okay. I certainly didn't want Lachey to go, and it was probably the downfall of my whole game, this particular vote. But that was
not playing it for Lachey.
What's that?
Not playing it for Lachey.
I feel terrible about it, honestly, particularly since like she really thought it was her, and we knew, and Juan told us. I didn't believe it. And that's part of what I was saying earlier, where I had a really hard time trusting people. So even when people were kind of telling me the truth, I was like, I wasn't trusting them. And I think I really got in my head about like, maybe like the people talking about you paranoid. Maybe I was a little bit too much in my head about it, and just like saw the people wandering off talking to each other, like, and thinking, oh my God, they're all whispering. Like I just maybe got, I just wasn't trusting anything anybody was telling me. And it was the worst move of my game. It was the thing that killed me. Like, yeah, it's terrible. I felt terrible. Plus it was like my best friend who went out of the game when I could have saved her. It was horrible.
So you lose an ally. You have what you think could be the numbers when this next vote. Isaiah wins immunity. You're going to end up targeting Aliana. How come?
We thought she was the kind of the leader of that side. She was just really funny, really charismatic. She was like, I loved being around her. I loved playing with her. Like she was so much fun. And you could tell she was like in charge there. Even if she tried not to be, she just was. She was just the life of the party, the center of everything. And so I knew immediately that we needed to get her out. Like I knew way back, but we were trying to bide our time to kind of make sure we did it. And they had already played that idol. You know, I was still under the impression, because I was like in the dark at this point, that most of the beads were out of the game. So I didn't even think that there really were, unless we combine Chad's
never going to see beads played ever again. So
yeah. Well, and so I kind of thought beads were basically out of the picture. So I said, okay, this is a time when we can target Allie. And I think she goes by Allie as well. I know Aliana, but I call her Allie. I think she's fine with that. And I knew Juan had basically helped us, and I had not trusted him, but he had helped us. So I felt really strong that he was going to be with us. So we felt pretty confident about taking her out, and I didn't really think there was a chance of them playing an idol. Sounds like there could have been. I'm surprised they didn't do it. That would have been a very good move for them.
They just didn't have the beads either.
Yeah, but I thought they did between Chad and. No, I guess Nina had everything, but Nina was kind of playing with them, so I guess it was Nina's choice if she wanted to let them in on that. Yeah.
So, who did you think was voting with you on Aliana?
I thought it would be Rob, Nina, Geraldine, Isaiah, Juan, and me.
Okay, so that would be like a 6-4 vote.
Yeah, I sure did.
Do you know why Juan voted Nina?
I don't think we told him who to vote. I think we said, vote for someone on your tribe.
Again, so twice in a row, just like we're not going to even tell you the plan.
And again, bad play, I will say. I should have trusted him at that point. But there was some question about like, God, Jess did that, and then they like did the Lachey thing. I'm like, it was all still a little bit fishy. Like nothing was like totally making sense. In retrospect, of course it didn't, because Nina told them the whole story.
It's valid.
So there was lots of like questions of like, I'm not sure who I'm trusting. I didn't know if somebody had told Juan. I didn't know if somebody had told Chad. So I still didn't really trust either of those guys. That was probably to my detriment, because other people were being a little more trusting with them and probably able to pull them in a little bit faster than I was. So, you know, that was I think why Juan. Now, why he didn't like put a vote on maybe Allison or Jessica, I don't know. But that was kind of the reason. And this one, like, at least the first time when Lachey went home, yeah, it was a blindside, but it was an idle play. So of course, this one was like, I was truly blindsided. I'm like, what is happening here? And when I came back and found out it was Geraldine and Nina, I was just like, well, I don't understand. And they're like, well, it was an orange. I'm like, it was the orange who was voting with us. What are you talking about? So this is where I started thinking, oh my God, the dreaded Girls Alliance is coming to life. Like, oh, it's happening, right? Because I couldn't figure out why the heck they would do that when we all kind of thought like, Allie's the head of the snake, you know, and if we didn't want to take out Allie, I'd be happy to take out any of the other ones, basically. So to me, that was like, that's when I knew, oh, I'm really in trouble, and I actually am really in a bad position in this game because I don't actually know what's happening. And this is when I started to feel really down personally, because I'm like, I am not playing the game I wanted to play, and I don't know how to dig myself out of this anymore. So I was really, really down after this vote.
So what? Describe the game that you wanted to play.
I wanted to be a little bit more playing between the two sides. Wanted to be more playing in the middle. And I did that a little bit pre-merge, but when we came into the merge, and again, part of this was game design. I think it was just kind of natural. It's what happened all the first seasons. Like, you very rarely got a lot of like flipping, because there's not a lot of incentive to flip when you don't really have relationships with other people. It's hard to trust them, and there are no like advantages or idols that help you like shift the momentum. So it's a lot of times it makes a lot more sense to kind of stick with the people you know. So and like I tried working on Jess. She was kind of a closed book. Like I think she was friendly and like open, but I don't think she was never really got the feeling that she was open to working with me. I felt she was like so firmly in with like that group of theirs, and all of them too. Allison like barely spoke to me. Chad was like the one person who I thought like, okay, I do feel like he's making an effort here. And I feel like I made the mistake where I was just being a little too slow to like bring him in. I don't know if he ever would have. I don't know if he ever would have like played more with me if I had been a little more open with him. But that was probably the one thing I should have done that maybe could have countered what Nina and Rob had going on.
So you mentioned kind of like you're blindsided, Wong goes out. There seems to be a girls' alliance. This next vote, you will vote on Aliana. How does that come about?
Jerry and Nina flipped back over, right? So I saw those two as the flips in between. And it was true. Like it didn't make sense for Jerry and Nina to be on the side with, what we thought maybe were the 3 women on that side. You guys are going to be 2 with 3, right? And Nina said it in her deep dive. Like that didn't make sense. And I kind of trusted like, okay, maybe you guys want to play in between. Fine. As long as I'm like tight with you guys and I'm not one of the people you take out on the other side. So I think, I don't know if they were always going to come back to us. I know that Nina didn't feel great about voting Aliana out. I don't think she really wanted to do that, but I don't think there were that many good choices at that point. And we all knew she was like a boss. Like she was like too big in the game. Like you couldn't leave her around that much longer. So I do think it was just the logical choice for us in the numbers if Jerry and Nina were going to vote with us. I know Rob was dead set on Allie. He kind of felt the same way I did. And I know Isaiah liked Aliana as well, but I think he saw that she was like too threatening, to keep in the game. So like, I think it was just a logical choice, and Nina and Geraldine kind of flipped back over to our side.
So Aliana goes out in a 6-3 vote with Allison, Jess, and Aliana voting you. Did you know that you were going to receive votes here, or was this a surprise?
I had suspected it. I didn't know for sure. I kind of thought maybe Isaiah would catch the votes instead of me. But I didn't feel like I had great relationships with anybody. That was part of my frustration is I couldn't like break into any of those like, and that's something I usually feel really good about. I feel like I can play with anybody. I feel like I can like, and it just, for whatever reason, and I keep like attributing it to the structure of the game or something, but like, I just couldn't like make any inroads with them. So I'm not surprised. I think I had started hearing my name a couple of rounds before. So I knew I was definitely on people's minds. Had I caught any votes before then? No, I hadn't caught any votes before then, but I felt like I'd been in consideration. I think maybe Geraldine had told me that she'd like got my name off the block a couple times. So I knew I was one of the people they were thinking about. I think they probably wanted to keep Jerry and Nina close. Rob obviously couldn't be voted for. So yeah, it wasn't a surprise that I was one of them. I thought they would have taken out Isaiah first, which ultimately they did, but
you kind of mentioned like this is like about an hour ago, this would be more kind of occurring in the merge, and definitely something you learned a lot when you're on the jury. But to what extent do you feel like the past connections people had were affecting your game in ways you didn't see at the time?
In retrospect, I didn't see it at the time at all. Even when I left, I did not understand. Like it logically did not make sense to me why Nina and Rob had been like voting with that other side, like on Isaiah. And it didn't make sense to me why the rest of the group wanted to keep Rob over me on the vote when I went out. So there were things that like, for me, like I could not understand for the life of me why those choices were being made. Once I got out to jury and realized, oh, well, Rob and Allison have kind of played together before. So they had a connection. Nina and Allison had kind of played before. And so Nina and Rob were kind of tied. I'm like, okay, so this was actually more of the subtext of what was happening in our season, is like some of these, like, because, and again, and I don't mean to be like whining about why I lost my game or anything. Like, look, you take whatever advantage you can in the game that you have, right? We all have the same game to play. Certain people have different advantages in every game. Like, it just happens. Like, I'm going to have an advantage in games where we talk about twins a lot because I've got twin kids, whatever, right? Like it's no, Rob played an awesome game. Allison played an awesome game. Chad played an awesome game. All those people played great. And Nina played a great game. So no shade to them at all. But the fact that they all had pre-existing relationships in a game where we didn't get to swap. So I never had a chance really to build anything with Allison, Jessica, Aliana, Chad, until like we were in merge and kind of on opposite sides, right? Like, and yes, you can build stuff then, but like, because we were like back and forth all the time, and there were other people already playing the middle, like because of their pre-existing relationships, like there's just no room to do that. So I was just hanging on by the, by my fingernails to like the majority purple group that I had. And that was like the best thing I could do, which is horrible game. Like, it is not the game at all I wanted to play, but it's like the only chance I had.
You got 6. Like, as of the day, 6 is pretty good in a cast of 18.
I know, but still, like, I'd like to go out 6 where I felt like I played really hard and I got taken out because they were afraid I was going to win. That's not why I got taken out, right? I got taken out because I was not part of their group of 4. So that for me is like frustrating because I don't feel like I got to play the way I wanted to play. Like, and in the end, I was like, okay, well, the only option I have is to try to get Rob out. And I was pitching, and this is legitimately the 3 I wanted to finish with, Allison and Geraldine and I'm like, okay, those are the 3 that I don't think I've got any of these in the bag. Allison certainly has a lot of her tribe, and I don't know what she was doing pre-merge. And Geraldine and I think in a way played similar games. So I was like, by no means do I think I have the winning game here, but like, this is probably the best pitch I've got. So I went to Allison and Geraldine and said, hey, look, this is it. You guys look around. Do you see anything better for you? Because I think we're kind of the 3 here who should do that. And for me, it just never made sense why some of those decisions were made until I see, oh, well, Allison was tight with Rob because they at least had a connection before, So yeah, that's my long kind of ranty response.
So let's get to the Isaiah vote, right? We're at the final 8. Your purple tribe has the numbers, right? At this point, there's 5 purple players. You have 3. You have 3 orange players left in Jessica, Chad, and Allison. What led to the flip on Isaiah? You've kind of talked a bit about this before. Was this something that you've been thinking a lot about, or was this more spur of the moment, like, I don't trust him anymore?
This really wasn't my move. This was Rob's move. And this is when I really got a better picture of how good a player Rob actually was, and how he actually like had a little bit more going on than I realized. So this was like the lead up where I think this was the one. Was this after the memory where we came out of the water? Was this?
This is the Box Your Mind challenge.
Yeah.
Which, yes, there's water involved.
Yeah, we swam out and we memorized
a picture of you being eaten by a shark.
And we came up. Yeah, and Isaiah was helping Rob in this one. So this was where like the height of everyone talking about me being paranoid. And Isaiah wasn't really talking to me that much. And he was like frustrated with me because I was like saying, are you saying my name? Like, I'm like saying to him, I'm like, I'm here. You're saying my name. Is that true? And he's like, I'm not saying your name. Quit being paranoid. I'm like, okay, but like, that's not a great response. Like, it just makes me more nervous. I'm like, help me figure this out. So I think we were, and this was Nina and Rob, I think somewhat intentionally, not like super like mastermind manipulator, but I think a little bit intentionally like saying, oh, let's let that stew a little bit. And like, if we can feed that a little bit, great. And this was very much last minute because I think we were talking about Chad at this point. Like where I thought we were going was Chad. And I was very much on board with that. Even though Chad was like one of the people on the other side that I felt like I could do, I was like, okay, well, if Chad's the only option on the table, I'm okay to take him out. He had also won a couple immunities at that point, and I was like, okay, he was clearly smart and strategic, and I was like, okay, it's fine. We can take him out. I was on board with that, and it was as we started walking to tribal where Rob said to me, it was like maybe right before that, he's like, we're going to take out Isaiah. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And I think Geraldine was there, and she's like, yeah, I think we're doing that. I think did Geraldine vote?
Geraldine was left out of this vote.
Me and Geraldine were left out. Okay. Oh,
well, no.
Yes.
Well, you know the vote, but Geraldine and Isaiah are both blindsided this round.
Yes. Right. So this is where Rob told me, like right at the last minute, as we're kind of walking, and I'm like, why are we doing this? This doesn't make sense to me. But is Isaiah kind of trying to target me, right? This is all in my head. I wasn't necessarily on board with it, but I understood that Rob basically had the numbers. So Rob and Nina were voting with those others. And he basically said, don't tell Geraldine, because she'll tell him, which I don't know. But at that point, I was, I guess, too suspicious of what was happening. And realizing I'm still kind of reeling because I'm like getting votes and being left out of stuff that I'm just like, I'm out of the know, and I'm feeling out of the know. I'm feeling kind of down about stuff. So I'm like, okay, Isaiah, we're taking out Isaiah. I still felt like, okay, I have Rob, I have Nina, I have Geraldine, me versus Chad, Allison, and Jessica. I still felt like, okay, we still have numbers here, right? After this vote. So is this the way? And again, this is like what I'm saying. Like, I didn't feel like I had any control over these votes. I was kind of being dictated to me what we were doing, but I was still like in and like able to like live to fight another day, and could kind of like maybe make some luck, win an immunity and have a little more say in something, So, I reluctantly went along with the Isaiah vote just to be in the numbers. It was not good for my game. I think Isaiah said to me, I really wasn't saying your name. I really wasn't coming for you, at least not then. I think he might have at some point, but honestly think my game was so in the dumps at that point. I don't think he would have come for me because I don't think I was much of a threat, unfortunately. So it was not a great move for me. And Isaiah was really mad at me, I think, for putting a vote on him. But at that point, I was like, well, I'm going to try to preserve my relationship with Rob, at least. And try to play this out because I thought we were tighter than we ultimately were. And that's why I voted in. But as soon as I got in jury, I told, Isaiah was like mad. And I'm like, that was not me. That was not my vote. I got told that vote as we were walking, and I went along with it. But it really was not, what I wanted to do. I was kind of okay with it because I think I'd been like wound up about it. But, it really wasn't good for me in any way.
Rob is going to win his third immunity challenge in a row at this point.
Yeah.
How much is Rob, like this is final 7, how much is Rob starting to become a concern? He's someone you feel close to, someone who you feel like you've worked with. But how much you're kind of looking and saying, you're now kind of being a problem?
I mean, I had the conversation with anybody I felt pretty close with, and really almost everyone probably on the merged tribe at that point. Like, if Rob loses, probably he needs to go. I think everyone was kind of saying that. I really believe that. Yes, I did feel like Rob was an ally of mine, but I also felt like I wouldn't sit at the end with him. He would beat me. And not because everybody thought everyone was going to vote just for a challenge beast. That wasn't all Rob was doing. And I think that was like when I got into jury, when I first walked in there, they were very down on Rob. And they're like, he's winning an immunity challenge. That's it. I'm like, that's not all he's doing. You guys are missing. I think y'all are missing a little bit of what he's doing there. And for me, it was clear that Rob was a huge threat. And as soon as he lost, I had said it to Nina several times, to Jerry several times. I know she was on board with it. And I'd even said it to, like, I think not so much to Chad, maybe Chad and I don't think Chad and I had talked about it because it kind of Chad and Rob and I were flirting with the three of us kind of playing together. So I didn't say anything to Chad, I don't think, but certainly said it to Allison and Jessica. If Rob loses, we're down for taking him out. So I thought that would be easy, but yeah, it was a huge issue that he kept winning, and it was frustrating because I wanted to win. I really wanted to win some of those.
And so at the final 7 votes, kind of purple's back together again, and you're targeting one of the oranges. This is where, Chad's also going to have immunity thanks to the stamps, but that's going to be revealed at tribal council. So really, you get to choose between Jessica and Allison. It's going to land on Jessica, it seems.
Yeah, and again, not knowing that Nina and Rob were connected to the other side, I was very happy to say either of them. I don't care. I really didn't have a preference. I felt slightly more aligned with Jessica just because I had some tangential relationships with Vanquish, but I wasn't getting much from her. I was getting more from her than I was getting from Allison. So, again, if I had any real sway, I probably would have pushed it towards Allison, but I didn't. So I was more like, I'll vote for either, whatever. And of course, Nina and Rob probably pretty subtly, because we didn't pick up on it, push that to Jess, and we were, Geraldine and I were fine with that. So that was, to me, a straightforward vote, but there were a lot of straightforward votes that didn't happen that way. So I was kind of in my feels, I think, all this day, basically, because I'm like, I don't know what the hell's happening, and whatever. This is what makes sense to me, and you guys are gonna do it or not at this point. And I didn't feel like I could change it.
Were you surprised to catch votes again?
No, because I think once you get votes, it's easy. A little surprised that Nina wasn't getting votes from time to time, just because, she was, I think it was becoming, maybe it wasn't so clear at this point, but she'd been doing well in those challenges. She'd been hanging in a lot of these challenges. So, I felt like she could have been a target too. But again, she and Geraldine had voted with that other side. So they probably felt like they had a better chance of working with her than me. So no, not a total surprise that I was their target.
So ending day 6, can you rank the other 5 players left in the game from most to least important to your game?
Geraldine, by far number 1 to me. I knew we were working together. I knew she was really tight with Nina, so I felt like I was Geraldine's number 2 over with Nina being her number 1. I think in her deep dive, she said she felt, I can't remember, she said that I was her number 1. I never was certain that I was her number 1. Again, my trust issues, I guess, kicking in. But she was definitely my most important person. Rob was still there, although I told him to his face that I was voting him out. So that's how stupid I am. Probably Nina 3, maybe Chad. Chad and Nina were right there together, and then Allison would have been the 5th, just because I had not really had any good conversation with her, unfortunately.
And then so day 7, you have this opening immunity challenge where Rob's going to lose. Allison and Geraldine are going to essentially help Nina beast through these puzzles and never have to worry about her water. So she's going to win immunity.
Yep.
Talk me through this round. How does it go? You mentioned you tell Rob that he's going home.
Yeah. First of all, I was super annoyed with this challenge because I am good at puzzles, and I felt like that would have been a good one because I even said in my confessional that morning, they're like, "Oh, what kind of challenge you on?" I'm like, "I'd love puzzles with a running endurance element," which is exactly what I got. So I see it walking up on me. Hell yes, this is it. Finally, I can actually win one here and get a little bit of power in this game and maybe try to make a final run here and do something. So I was super, super excited. And so when Nina immediately did that first one and it became more and more clear that it wasn't happening, I just was like, okay. And then when Geraldine and Allison started helping her, I was like, okay, that's annoying, but whatever. I was very much on the Chad or Rob have to go. So if Rob had won, I would have been, let's get Chad out. If Chad had won, I'd been let's get Rob out. The fact that Nina won, I was I wish I would have won, but I wasn't super mad at that. because I thought it was very evident to everybody that Rob should be the one to go out at this point.
So how does the strategy time go back at camp then?
So, I mean, we go back to camp, and I think Rob was the first person I talked to. And, you know, maybe this is stupid, but I basically said to him, I said, this is tough. I'm like, I feel like you know, I felt like Rob was a person who appreciated directness. When we had first started talking together in our pre-merge stuff, like he would come to me a lot and be like, you'll tell me if it's me, right? And he was like, you know, a little bit paranoid too, and like very nervous about votes and stuff. And so at one point in kind of pre-merge, I said, listen, I want to be like super upfront with you. Like, it makes sense for me to work with you because I think you are a huge target. And so I want to bring you to the end. I want to bring you as far as I can because, you know, I feel like you'll be a good shield for me now. Well, he wasn't much of a shield because he kept winning stuff, but like, you know, so I felt like I had like at least explained myself. Now, also, of course, that lets him know like, hey, I think you're a huge threat. And at some point I'm going to turn on you. Right. So like, probably that's why I will always felt closer to him than he did to me, because he knew that in my mind he was like a little bit expendable. So that's probably a mistake. I shouldn't have been so open about that. But I felt like that was the only way I could like kind of convince him that I was really with him in those early days. So fast forward to this vote, I'm like, Rob, you've been winning everything. And I told him, and this is really true. I said, if you can get them to vote anyone else, if you got numbers, I'll vote with you. But I think everybody's voting for you. That's what I told him straight up. I said, okay. And he kind of like, we had a little conversation. I said, you know, I don't know if it was already decided before then or not that I was the next person to go. I feel like they kind of had said, I think in one of the deep dives, they kind of had said like it was probably going to be Brandon next. I think maybe Nina said that. So, you know, there wasn't a whole lot of discussion going around. Like, and everybody I talked to was like, yeah, definitely Rob. Yeah, definitely Rob. I'm like, okay, good. So it was actually a pretty not crazy scramble in my mind, which is probably the death knell. But I feel comforted in the fact that I was right, that they should not have taken him. I was right on the record. Let the record show. You know, it was okay. I felt like I was making the right decision. Every time I made a choice, you know, it was for reasons that I stand behind and can like defend. So I don't feel bad about what I did there. I just, you know, he had an organization that I didn't see. And so there's not much I could do to combat that.
So you end up being blindsided in a 4-2 vote. You and Gerald blinds together. You go to the jury. You mentioned that you had to clear up some things when you arrived.
Yeah. Because I think, you know, I think Isaiah had. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think Rob had truly convinced a lot of people that he was, you know, a strong silent type, that he was like not doing a whole lot under the surface. Like what you see is what you get. And I think, you know, a little bit before the Isaiah vote for me, but particularly that Isaiah vote, I could see like, oh, he's actually like got something going. I can see he's working really close to a Chad. I never saw him and Allison working that close together. That was the thing that like I was like totally surprised by in jury. But so I could see when I got to jury that like Isaiah had maybe attributed his ousting more to me than to Rob, because Rob had like downplayed his some of his skills, I think. And so when I said, and like the, you know, like Allie and Jess were very much like, Rob's not playing. He's just winning stuff. He's not doing anything, right? And I'm like, I think y'all are missing a little bit more of his game. I'm like, we'll see as more people come out, but I think there's more to that. And I think when you get to his like final tribal and you like kind of hear from like Nina when she comes in, like he was playing very hard. He played a great game. I will argue that, you know, he had a little bit of an advantage knowing Allison, but like he took advantage of that. That's what you have to do. Like everybody's going to have certain advantages, and good players take advantage of that. And, you know, that's the way it works.
So going to the Final Tribal Council, it's Allison versus Rob. Were you leaning one way or another prior to Final Tribal Council?
I was certainly leaning Rob just because I feel like I saw his game pretty clearly. I hadn't played much with Allison. From my perspective, she had been attached to the Allie Jess group with Chad. But I hadn't seen her necessarily with that much agency, with her kind of calling the shots. I didn't know precisely who was calling the shots, and that was what I was looking for. I try to go into any final tribal really open. I want to vote for the person who, you know, really played the best game, who really embodied, you know, who can really speak for our season. Had she come out and saying, yeah, look, I said we had to get rid of Juan because this, and this. And I said, hey, we really have to do this and that because for these reasons, I would have very much respected her game. But the fact is I felt like in a way, which is why I thought she would have been a good person for me to go to the final three with. She probably would have beaten me, but she was playing a game where she was not really calling the shots that much from my perspective. And nothing she said in that final really changed my mind that much about that.
And so your question is going to ask the players about the lack of advantages and twists and how that changed the way they play their game. Do you feel like either their answers to your question swayed you?
No. I wanted them to kind of own that they like took advantage of one of the only real things in the game that they could. Maybe Rob did a little bit. I can't remember their answers to it right now, to be honest. I think
Rob said I played a game that I didn't need any advantages. When Trav left, we had the outcast aspect. I got his bead, but I never needed to play it. I wanted to play a game that I didn't need an advantage to propel me to the end.
Yeah. What I wanted to hear was people saying, look, I had one little thing here. I knew Allison and I took advantage of that. Or Allison saying, look, I had a little advantage here and I made use of that. I wanted them to acknowledge like that we played an old school game and that they had been like intentional with how they had played that version of the game. And I didn't think I don't think I particularly asked the question that well. And I don't think they were picking up what I was putting down exactly. So nothing they answered really helped me that much.
So you go in leaning more towards Bob. You don't feel like anything that's really said in Final Tribal Council sways your mind. You're going to cast your vote for Rob. What did you expect? Did you think one of them was going to win before the votes were revealed?
I thought Rob had a really good Final Tribal.
Okay.
I thought he was really strong. I know Aliana said she thought Allison had a great final tribal. And then she said a couple things like I think Allison like raising her hand, like she raised her hand for everybody. She even half raised it for me when like she had like hardly given me the time of day when we were in camp together. So I was like, wow, that's like overcomes. And honestly, like going into jury and the way Aliana and Jess were talking about, oh, Allison and Chad are wiping the floor, it was a little off-putting the way they were like, kind of like, they weren't like, from my perspective, weren't seeing like the other side of the game, right? And it's easy because we played two very distinct games. And even when we all merged, like we were very much separated. Like I feel like I really played most of that game with purple, like very little overlap with orange. Even when we were merged, like I didn't play that much together. And I the way Allison expressed that, I think she was talking from a purple. She probably did play one of the better games on purple or on orange, but it was the full game that we were looking at. And so I don't know. I didn't think she had done enough to make her case. And I thought Rob had really made his case well. I wasn't certain that everybody was going to see that.
Mm-hmm.
I know Isaiah was still a little bit like with Rob, and I think Lachey to an extent was a little bit with Rob as well. But I know that Jerry and Nina both saw Rob's game. I felt like they were pretty strong. I think Chad also saw Rob's game. So I feel like at least the last couple people out really saw Rob's game and were able to kind of help articulate that. When we had our little pre-final conversation, I think that helped illuminate it for people who'd maybe gone out earlier in merge.
Yeah. And Chad also, spoilers for his interview tomorrow, mentioned that Rob swayed him at that final trial.
I totally agree with that. Like I was certainly leaning more up. Chad probably saw a lot more of Allison's game. So I totally understand why Aliana, Jess, Chad maybe had a lean to her in the beginning or more open. I think Rob was just super strong. It had a little bit of showmanship in a couple places, like tying into the original story. Like he just did a really good job. I was happy for him. Mad at him too, but also happy for him.
Yeah, I mean, you always look the winner and say, "Man, that could have been me." If only like A, B, C, D, F, G changed, I could have been there. So, how was your post game?
It was fun. It was nice. I think, I kind of have mentioned to you a couple of times, like, I don't feel like I played the game I wanted to play. And so I was a little bit down about that. I think
I will say, I think it's hard playing one of these games the first time. I think these games can be really overwhelming. Yeah, it's a lot of like, there's this like newness factor. There's a lot of things you don't anticipate or see. And I think I do definitely think like there is an experience angle you come in the second time. I mean, my first game I played did not go how I wanted to go. Let's just say I was an emotional wreck at the end. And then the future games have been better. It's like that first game described as my Survivor dream and nightmare all at once.
Yeah.
I would like give yourself a bit of grace for that, because I think it's really hard walking in and like, especially an 8-day game.
Yeah. And I totally agree. And I think I was hard on myself at the last couple of days when I was in the game. I was also very emotional. I mean, every confessional I did, I think I started crying, about like my kids. And like, I was emotionally like spent. Right. And so I think like those first couple of days out of the game, I was like frustrated and like a little annoyed with myself. And I think the more that I understood like some of the things that had happened in the game, the more I kind of agree. I give myself a little bit of grace for saying, okay, I played the best I could play. I was certainly like down at the beginning of the game because I was sick and I was like slow to build some of those relationships. And I like got myself into a good position at merge. And then I like really struggled at merge and, still played a pretty decent game despite not having a whole lot of control. So I do feel good about it. Ultimately, it took me a minute, but it was fun. It was nice to see everybody. It was nice to kind of connect. I feel bad for like Chad and Allison and Rob, because it was like straight out of there to like, oh, we're at the brewery. Everybody, like I was overwhelmed and I'd had a day to like recover. So I can only imagine how hard it was for those guys.
So I guess what have you learned and taken away from this experience?
So I'm really proud of like some of the stuff, that I did in the game. I had prepared and I felt like I was making fires. I was doing good in challenges. I was like thoughtful, intentional about everything I was doing. Yeah. I didn't do everything, but like, I feel good about the game. One of the reasons I left my job a year and a half ago was I was very, I had my own business and I was like really stressed out. And it was kind of following me home, where I felt like I was not the best husband. I was not the best father. And I was, unfortunately in a situation where I could say, you know what, Joey, if, are you okay if I step out of this role and I focus on stay-at-home dad and you keep working and I can do some assisting. So I do some like side consulting to help him, but that's essentially it. And so the last year and a half for me have been about like trying to be a better father, to be more present at home. This is like the most important thing in my life. And so I'm going to get emotional against him because I'm a crazy person, but like, so
all of us in these games are crazy people. Don't worry.
So for me, like the fact that like towards the end of the game, like all my thoughts were like about my kids and about Joey, and and like it just became clear like how central to my life they were, and how important that was. And it feels good to like come out of that like game, which is crazy, and like realize that like you have the center of your life that you like left everything for a year and a half ago. You're in the right place. You're focused on the right things. You're doing the right things. These kids are they're the most important thing you've got going on right now. To give them a good start for their lives. I don't know. I feel really good about, about where I was mentally. I think I feel good about like, I felt like I was a good person at camp. I wasn't like hangry. I wasn't like tired. I was a good kind of, I had good spirit at camp that I think people appreciated. And you never know exactly how you're going to be when you're like thrown into a situation like this. So I'm just really I'm proud of like the way I handled myself there. I felt like most of the good stuff came out. Yeah, a couple of the bad stuff, maybe the paranoia and stuff came out a little bit, but I feel like mostly the things that I think are positive about me are what kind of showed,
If you played another game like this, what would you want to do differently?
I'll say this. I'm not going to do it. I think I'm just physically incapable of doing it. Try not to push myself quite so hard. Try to like slow myself down a little bit at the beginning. When it comes to like physical stuff and like, I have a hard time like reining myself in. But I do think taking care of myself a little bit more, especially early on, would be good. And I think I came in thinking I've got 2 days, so don't go too fast. But I think the reality is you have to be a little bit faster. And I typically in like orgs and stuff, I start pretty quick, but I was intentionally trying to slow myself down a little bit in the beginning. And then on top of that, I just physically had to slow myself down. So I think those are probably, take a little bit better care of myself and force myself to get into game mode a little bit sooner. Not crazy game mode, but like be in the conversations, because I think I was digging myself out for a lot of the game.
How has your husband and kids and friends reacted to this game in your experience?
They were really supportive. I came back to like our family chat of like a week's worth of, did you see what so-and-so said about him? And like just all this back and forth. I'm like, this is madness. Like my family, they're not into Survivor as much time. They're not like, so to see them like following this, like, hour by hour and saying, oh, I found this on TikTok. Take a look at this. Like there's all this stuff. So they were like very invested. They're very worried about me when I was sick and, very proud of me when good stuff was happening. And like, so I think I brought like a lot of excitement and like, it felt really good. And I think they were really proud of how I played and, the way I kind of comported myself. And like a lot of my friends who I play with were like super supportive too. Like when I read back some of the comments of like some of my friends who were watching stuff, they were like, just like so supportive. And I cannot express how thankful I am in the mindset that I came out of the game, to see people kind of really like being in my corner was really, really important. And I was appreciative of.
Anything else at your game you want to talk about that maybe we hadn't had a chance to dig into?
Let's see. I made notes, Stephen. Let me see if I missed anything. I talked about some of my mistakes. overestimating my relationship with Rob, underestimating other relationships like the Rob and Trav, how tight they were, Isaiah with Jerry, Allison and Chad with Old Purple, all that stuff. How much Rob and Nina had of Vendetta, I definitely underestimated that. Should have trusted my read with Jerry more. I really should have gotten in with Jerry earlier. And we were very close, but I kind of always kept her at arm's length because of her relationship with Nina. I should have trusted my gut on that a little bit more. Should have been a little more working harder on relationships that should have been good, like with Chad, with Isaiah. Like Isaiah and I think could have been a lot closer if I'd invested more in that. Even Nina. I don't know. And I was probably too cautious, just afraid to trust people. So those were kind of the big mistakes that I thought I had. But I don't know. I generally I try to be reflective of this stuff because I feel like it doesn't just apply to games. Sometimes it applies more broadly, and I'm generally happy with it.
So I have some wrap-up questions for you then.
Yeah.
If you can give yourself one piece of advice before you start the game, what would you tell yourself?
Don't go out too hard. Yeah. And take care of yourself. Kind of what I was saying, like
for the next game.
You don't have to win. You don't have to win. You don't have to run the 2 mile in the heat challenge at 110%. Take it down to 80.
Do you prefer swaps or no swaps?
Oh my God, swaps. And look, I've been swap screwed before, so I know it doesn't always work out, but swaps. It gives you more tools to play with. Without swaps, you're kind of at the mercy of if you go into merge with more people or not, so definitely swaps.
Should every game like this have a redemption element?
Oh, I love the idea of redemption. I think in this particular game, because you get 2 days to play, I don't think before anybody's voted out, I don't think redemption is that important. I think in games where you take people out the very first day, I think redemption's better. I also think you shouldn't do redemption basically after merge. So I think redemption's okay sometimes in the right circumstances, but every time, no.
What was your favorite challenge?
Man, that first challenge was awesome. I love that. I also liked some of the ones that I did well in. So the stand-up pulley one. Someday we'll see how amazing I was at that, and then you'll all understand why I keep talking about it. That was just fun to be good at. I love the puzzle ones. I wish I could have done more of the 3 puzzle one that Nina finished so quickly. But I loved the tribe puzzle ones where we ended with puzzles. Those were so much fun. I really enjoyed doing those.
What was the favorite moment you had at camp?
Well, we had it was the personal sessions. I think in our first merge, I think we might have done it the second morning. We had a little intro the first day, but we didn't really talk. I think at some point we were had done rice or something. I think this was the second morning, and we all just kind of sat around and really talked about ourselves a little bit more, and it evolved into some game plan. But really, that was getting to know them. And we did the same thing in our merge tribe. Again, not the first day we got together, but at another point. But we were all just sitting around and really kind of talking about ourselves and sharing, and at that point, I think people were really sharing important parts of their lives. And some of those stories are really important. And, I appreciate people, sharing stuff that's really important and really, central to their lives. It's nice to be able to meet people and that quickly get so close to them. And those were the moments where I feel that was happening. So I like that.
If you opened the jar of candy, who would you have shared it with?
Sam definitely wanted it. So I would have shared it with her. And I probably would have been a little bit strategic. So I'd have tried to pick a couple people who I wasn't super close with. I was really trying to build something with Nina. So I probably would have tried to share it with Nina. I don't know if she even wanted candy, but I probably would have tried that with her. I was probably trying to build something with Trav a little bit then too. So maybe him. I don't know. I'd have been strategic about who I did it with.
Who do you wish you had a chance to work with but just didn't in the game?
Chad probably, like that was probably my biggest like move that I could have made that I didn't. Juan to an extent, but Chad as well. Those were the two chances. Thank you, Chad. I appreciate that. Those were the two people who like I felt like were open on orange, and I was a little slow to trust them. And I think had I been quicker, maybe I could have had more of the game that I wanted to play. I could have played more of the game I wanted to play because I would have had a little more agency. So those two guys.
And this last question, Lexington asked a while ago, but I've been saving it for now. Who from your cast would you like to see come back and have a second chance at Reelfoot?
Jerry, definitely. This was like her first game ever. And I thought she was really good. And she's so smart and so fun. Like I think she would come out in her second game and she had a real ramp up period. I think it took her like 3 or 4 days really to kind of, at least from my perspective, to get playing. And she was really, I think, somebody who I really trusted and thought was smart out there. So I'd love to see her play again. I think she could play a lot better. Probably like Colby, who I didn't play with at all, but I want to give people a chance to play who like maybe didn't really get to show everything. Lachey could have done probably a lot more damage if she'd gotten further. So I'd love to give her another chance too. Those would be the people I'd probably root for.
Brandon, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with this morning. I'm really happy you reached out and got to talk to you before you went off on vacation. So yeah, just thank you so much.
Thank you, Stephen. I really appreciate you doing this. I mean, it's it's a lot of your time, and it's nice for me to be able to process a little bit publicly all these things I've been thinking and feeling. So I really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, no, again, I appreciate it. Like providing that level of catharsis, and I think it's really important for these games, no matter whether you're first out or the winner.
Yeah,
it's just it's nice having your story all in one place.
Yeah. And can I say, I know a lot of people have said this, but like, I don't think I've said this enough. Like, this cast was fantastic. Every single person who I met, whether I kind of said, oh, we didn't talk that much. I love all of you guys. I think you are all rock stars. Everybody who made it to the end, I feel like I kind of dogged Allison a little bit. Like, I feel like she played a fantastic game. She got to the end. I certainly didn't. Everybody here, everybody who was on this cast was fantastic and had something to say. And I really appreciate knowing them. So I just want to make sure that's super clear before I sign off.
Oh, thank you again, Brandon. Thank you everyone for tuning in. This has been another episode of Live Reality Game Podcast. There are more Reelfoot deep dives to come. Tomorrow I will be talking with Chad, and Tuesday I will be talking with Allison. I need to start reaching out to more people getting stuff on the books. So thank you, everyone, and take care.
Thank you.